What does it mean to be gay? It can be a life filled with joy, but offset by bullying and prejudice. More than 1 in 4 gay, lesbian, or bisexual students will drop out of school, according to the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force. Gay and lesbian youth are 4 times higher risk for suicide than their straight peers, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Almost half, 42%, of adolescent gay and lesbians have suffered physical attacks. 97% of public high school students report hearing homophobic remarks from peers.
These facts that Barry Buttz wrote, Born to be Damned. It is a book about growing up gay in a mid-sized city, Decatur, Illinois. Thank you for joining us. People know little about what it means to be gay. Is gay a one-size-fits-all label?
Your questions are excellent. Absolutely not. There are as many gay men and women attracted to other gay men and women as they are not attracted to other gay men and women. Just as you can look at a guy or you can look at a guy and say, well, he's not for me, and so forth. That's exactly what happens. Plus, some lesbians and gays are attracted to older people, some to younger people. And I know you have a question coming up, so I won't get into that one too much more. But it isn't one size fits all. Everybody has to depend on their background, their own personal genetics, how they were handled by their parents. Some are kicked out of the home when they tell their parents they're gay. They're happy one day, and the next day they're out. They're the same person. How can you love somebody on Tuesday and on Wednesday you don't like them and you kick them out? They're exactly the same person they always were. Most of my former students know about my book. All I get on Facebook and emails are, we love you, Mr. B. You're fantastic. If it hadn't been for you, I wouldn't be where I am. You were the same person then. You're the same person now. That's exactly right. It's no different. So one size does not fit all. Everybody is different. Gays have good personalities. Gays have bad personalities. Gays are nice people. Gays are not nice people. Some gays are very monogamous and stay with their partners. Some run around. Tell me that doesn't happen in the straight world. It's the very same scenario. It happens in all worlds, in all cases. As I said, I'm really only attracted to older men. My partner's 84 years old. But we met when he was 56 and I was 40. I suppose, and I'll put it this way, my whole life I searched for a father figure. I had a father, but he wasn't there. Back in the day, your dads did their job. They went to work, came home, gave mom the money, and you ate. And he provided that. But I needed more. I never had it. I was never touched, never held. And I will tell you this because Ms. Bowman mentioned it. When I was 4, my mother told me I could not kiss my father goodnight anymore because boys don't kiss boys. I was 4. That was my dad. I wasn't a boy kissing a boy. That was my first introduction to homophobia, to homosexuality. And I sat in the corner and cried because Daddy didn't love me. I was 4. I didn't get it. I woke up the next morning. I didn't rather to go touch my dad, stay away from my dad. So I never went near my dad. I was never touched, held, anything. So I think for me, that's how my size fit me. I was looking for somebody older to almost be a substitute father. And I get that a lot when I talk to men in the gay community. Fathers were completely rejected them. In other cases, not at all. They had a great relationship with their father. But yeah, one size fit all? No.
Do many people confuse pedophiles with people who are gay?
I don't know who made up your questions, but they did a good job. Yes. Anytime you hear pedophile, that means a lust for children. It's always a man, and it's always gay. Not true. As I said earlier, pedophilia is an illness. That is mentally ill. But if you see it in the newspaper, even in the Herald and Review, if a man abuses a 10-year-old girl, they call that sexual abuse instead of pedophilia. Yeah, it's sexual abuse, but it's a pedophile. Now, if a man does it, or a priest does it, they call it pedophilia. Homosexual, simply because it's the same gender. That is so not true. Pedophilia is something that we need to understand, be aware of, be alert to, and those of us as educators, we were mandatory reporters. If anything that we suspected that a child was being abused by a man or a woman or whomever, we had to report it. So we did find some pedophiliacs out there, men or women who preyed on children. It's the same thing. Do you realize that there are female teachers out there, usually in high school, who go berserk over some high school boy, and that is a pedophile. That is a pedophile. You never hear it. In the news nationally, there have been a couple of women that had affairs with their high school children, high school students, if you will, and those are pedophiles. Same thing. Good question.
You were in education. Is there a reason people who are gay should not hold jobs such as teachers or soldiers?
Absolutely not. No reason at all. I mean, I was a coach, and I would go down in the locker room when the kids would change. So what? I mean, I was just a guy, a kid, a child. And children are hands off. I was also the girls' basketball coach. I did not go down in the locker room when they were changing, but they would call me down so we could have our pregame talk after they were all dressed. There's no reason in the world. More educators out there than you know are gay. And if you would think back, you might say, well, I had a teacher I thought was gay, and probably one of the best teachers I ever had. That usually happens. And as for soldiers, thank goodness they repealed that, because I'll tell you what, I've heard stories where they say, well, if I'm in a foxhole and I'm getting ready to shoot at the enemy and so forth, I don't want some guy looking at my rear end. That is like, seriously? I mean, do you think that if someone's shooting at you, you're not paying attention to protecting and keeping your own life, and that there's something sexual going on in a foxhole? Get real. Same way with athletes. You never hear about an NBA basketball player who is gay. Why? Because they fear, again, in the locker room, somebody's getting their jollies or looking at somebody. And that is not true. They're just there to play ball. They're there to do their thing. I had a young man down in Belleville, Illinois, come up to me and say, I'm a football player, and I walk in the locker room and I hear all these cat calls and whistles. And he says, Mr. Buttz, I'm just there to play football. I said, but that's fear. They don't understand. And when fear takes over, that happens. So, being a teacher, being a soldier, there's a time and a place for everything, and men and women in the gay world know the time and know the place.
What advice would you give to friends and families of young people who are gay?
Recognize that the individual is probably trying to find their place, that they need love and support as anybody else. You can't pray it out of them. You can't beat it out of them. You can't have an exorcism to take the gayness out of them. You can't take a pill and get better overnight. I talked to a priest in Florida last Sunday, and he said he was sent to a mental institution by the Catholic diocese to get that gay out of him. Then he came out, somebody came back in and said, still not out, sent him back again. 2 times. Mental ill. Totally not true. The last time he came out, they defrocked him. That means they took him away from the priesthood and wouldn't let him be a priest anymore. And to me, love, acceptance, understanding, and recognizing, and I think this is where, with religion as it is today, and I'm not here to condemn anyone's religion or their beliefs, but so many people believe it is a sin, and it is a sin of choice. Absolutely not. It's not any of those things, and they need to be accepted as they are for who they are, because young people in particular today, if they don't get that love and acceptance, guess what? There's always another bridge. And Tyler Clemente found that bridge, and he jumped. So,
How hard was it for you to write this book?
I've had many people say in a little town like Decatur, where homophobia, that means fear of gays, kind of reigns supreme, that it was hard and that it took a lot of courage. I'm not a courageous person, even though people say I am. I'm an honest person. That's always been my strength or my downfall. When I worked at the Kyle building here, I was honest. And if something wasn't right for kids or teachers, I would say so. Maybe it wasn't politically correct. Maybe it was something that would cost the district some money or something. But if it was for the good of the students or the teachers, I was always for it. I don't like cover-ups. I don't like phonies. I don't like $3 bills, which obviously don't exist. If you can't be real, if you can't be you, there's something wrong. And for 60 years, I was not real. And I didn't like it. And I wanted to say to the world, I am the same person I've always been. I was a good teacher, a good principal, and thank God I have two wonderful children who love their dad 99.99999% and totally support their father. That was my most important role in life. My best title, I have a lot of titles. That's my best title. Dad is my favorite title of all. And I'll still turn around in the mall if somebody yells Dad, even though I know my kids are grown and gone. So it was hard. It took 2 years to write the book.
Describe your love for your partner.
Yes, I can. It would be like any other couple, only in this instance it's just two dudes. It's just two dudes. We are probably as normal, straight couple. He was married, he has 5 children, but we're probably just a normal, people come and stay with us and they're like, you guys get up, you have breakfast, you read the paper, he has hot chocolate, and it's just every day. And instead of a female partner there, it's a male partner. And it's normal for us, whatever that word means. We've got to be careful as students for saying somebody's not normal. Well, what is? Tell me what normal is. Show it to me. It's like when we say in the wars in Iran and Iraq and Afghanistan, places, we're going to win. Well, tell me what winning looks like. What is winning? What does that look like? We've eradicated an entire race of people or a culture of people. That's winning? I don't call that winning. And so that's the way this is. A love for a partner is love. Caring, heart. I think that's why I was a good teacher and principal. The kids knew I was real. And they would come give hugs. Real hugs, not sexual hugs, fakey hugs. You'd get a thanks, Mr. Buttz. I could never change a student around by not touching them. If you love a child, you're going to touch somehow, whether it's, the fivers or whatever it is. And I learned my lesson when I was principal at Washington. I had a 2nd grade student, a girl, who flipped her teacher off. So I used the paddle. This was in '84. And I whacked her good. She came back that afternoon, and she had done it again. Flipped her teacher off. So I whacked her again. And she turned around and looked at me and said, "You're just another adult hitting on me." I put that paddle away so fast. I picked her up, put her on my lap, and I said, "I'm sorry. Mr. Buttz is sorry that he spanked you." And she cried, and I cried. And she gave me a hug, and I said, "You know what? Mr. Buttz needs a hug every day. Why don't you stop by the office and give me my morning hug to make me feel good?" I never saw that little girl again for bad things. And that's how I think it is for gay people. Have to have a chance. And a board and hitting and beating and bullying is not the answer.
Finally, let's talk about bullying in general. Can you describe your experience being bullied?
Okay, now we'll get this over with real fast. Can you imagine, as I said to you earlier, choices we don't make, right? If you were a kid, would you choose the name Barry Buttz? Get real, right? Can you imagine the names I have been called over the years? And it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. And Buttz alone stands by itself. Back in the 50s, no one said butt. That was like a curse word, and then the other words that go along with your rump or your rear or your derriere or whatever you want to call it. So my name had a curse word in it, let alone my first name, which always ended up something ridiculous like Harry, Bud, or other things. But the bullying in junior high for me, I was spat upon, spit. It hit on my face and ran down my shirt onto my clothes, and the comment was, "Your name embarrasses me." Another student. I registered at Eisenhower, sitting up in the tall, really sloped auditorium. Betty Buttz, they called the name. And I got up, and the dude says, "Butz, sit down, man, that's not you." It was me. It was just, no one wants to visually say Barry Buttz. In homeroom, I said, "Here, Betty Buttz." "No, it's Barry Buttz." That kind of a thing. So there was verbal abuse, physical abuse, all the way through. So I had to try to live a life of perfection. I had to be the best athlete, the fastest dude. I ran track and field. I was the only white boy on our relay team. And it was the best experience in the world because my African American brothers taught me the meaning of real life and what it was like. I could give you some big names from this community. I won't, since I don't have their permission, who ran with me. And they wanted me on their team. In fact, they would even say, "Don't let so-and-so beat you in trials tonight," and so forth. And that taught me a life lesson. That's why it's difficult for me to judge any culture. I judge people, individuals. And I used to tell my students, don't judge me for who you think I am. Get inside here, my heart. Get inside here, my head. Then if you don't like what you see, fine. But in the meantime, don't judge. So bullying can drive you over the edge. I went home many a night as a small child feeling shamed, like I was dirt, like I was scum. Only when I went out for sports at Eisenhower did I have any kind of self-image. That plus my mind. I was on honor society, honor roll, all those things that it took to be a true student athlete. And then when I went to college, I had a chance to prove myself as an academician, as a student. Sports went by the wayside because I hurt my knee really bad, as Mrs. Bowen read, it's in the book. And I was done. So I couldn't be the jock that I wanted to be.
Why do you think bullying happens?
It happens because someone doesn't feel good about themselves, so they try to make themselves look better in other people's eyes by putting those people down. Bullies have been bullied in most cases, and what they don't know is there's always somebody bigger, better, faster, meaner, and tougher right around the corner waiting to show you that you're not all that. They're waiting to show you that, I'm going to give you a licking that's really good. Bullying is also fear from within. I've used that word a lot with you today, fear. Fear from within that I'm not good enough, so therefore I've got to draw attention to myself. Bullies do that. Inside, they probably feel inferior. Now, not all, because I knew a few bullies that thought they were pretty big and bad until somebody beat them down. But it's going to happen, it will happen, as long as people have prejudice, as long as people don't accept, as long as people aren't tolerant of others, that we all don't have to be beautiful, we all don't have to have the best clothes, the designer jeans, the best shoes, and everything else. But we judge too many people by that today. There may be somebody over there who might be overweight in the poorest of clothes and the poorest of health, who may be the best friend you've ever had in your whole life. As we say and you say, who's got your back? Well, sometimes it's the least expected person who has your back. And the people you think will have your back won't.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I would add that being gay is, as in life, they'll say life is not a journey, it's a destination. Being gay is a destination. I fought it. I did everything I could to not be gay. I hated it. I hated my parents for giving me the genetics to be born that way. And yet then as it went on, I saw society trying to put me down. People saying it was my choice. People blaming me. People looking at me like I was something weird, like I was, some kind of an alien or some strange being, when I've always been who I am. It's a completely different mindset to try to fit in. And some of the kids that I had way back when, before schools were integrated, and Thomas Jefferson at one time was all white. And if we had a minority child come in, and I always had a relationship, they'd say, "Hey, Mr. Buttz, try being the only one." meaning the only black child in an all-white school. Well, I can say that from a gay perspective. Try being the only one. And if any of you are out there a minority in any way, you should get that. That, you know, as much as people out there hate because they don't understand, you know, see a black man on a corner and think he's going to beat him up or whatever, and he's a doctor or a lawyer or somebody of position, and see a gay man and think that he wants to, you know, do bad things or be silly, it's ridiculous. So we need to stop judging. We need to find out who that person is as an individual, because that's what we all are. You're not lumped in one race. You shouldn't be. You're both fine young women who have your own characteristics, not a racial characteristic. And I'm one man. I have my own characteristics as a gay man, and yet there are those out there who do things I would never do. I don't go to bars. I don't. And here's a biggie, and I'll kind of end with this. Most of what goes on in the gay world is myth. It's what people believe. It isn't true. And everything, I want you to think about this. Every movie that you've ever seen with a gay man in it, is he all man, or is it somebody they've made up to look as though he's effeminate? There's a movie out there called The Birdcage. Very funny. But all the men in it are very swishy and gay acting, which, you know, actors, that's a choice to act. But the men who really are that way, they don't have a choice either. But the movie that absolutely set this country on end was called Brokeback Mountain. They were cowboys. And two rough and tough cowboys found out that they were gay and had a love affair. And one died. That was the first time in this country that two men found out that they were gay. And this country had a hard time with that movie. Two rapping, strapping, tough, bronco-busting type men, as opposed to what the media wants the world to believe about gay men. And that makes all the difference in the world. It's myth. Just as the myth that an effeminate man is not a man or a good person or a good man. They are. As is the macho gay man or any other man. So myths need to be broken. It's another reason I wrote that book, to break some of the myths, to talk to young people. You are actually my target audience, you and college students. Because if I can get through to you, I can help a generation understand what it's like to grow up in a world that hates and discriminates against gay people. Because most of us are just trying to do our thing, live our life, and go our own merry way. And that, to me, and find out who we are as people and, believe in God. You know, most of us have our faith, but there are those who feel that they've been turned away from faith because the church, not God, doesn't love them. And I refuse to feel I was not created by God, I was not made by God, because God did create me, and God does not make mistakes. Thank you.
Thank you.